A television network once owned the New York Yankees. 1 year later, that same network spent even more money on a single guitar factory in California. The network is CBS. The year is 1965. The price is $13 million in cash, and CBS does not know the first thing about building a guitar. It sells airtime, it sells ratings, it sells the minutes between your favorite shows. What it wants is the name stamped on the headstock, and that name is Fender. Fullerton, California, a quiet town of citrus groves and machine shops, has just lost its most famous company to a boardroom 3,000 miles away. The day the deal closes, a line is cut straight through the history of the electric guitar. Everything built before this moment will one day be called pre-CBS, and collectors will empty their savings to own it. Everything built after will simply be Fender of the CBS era. The workers keep their jobs, the machines stay bolted to the floor. The guitars keep their curves, their finish, their sound. Only the owner is new, and the question behind every instrument in that building is about to change forever. For 15 years, one man had asked a single thing. Would a musician be happy playing this? Starting now, a corporation asks something else. Does it fit the balance sheet? The legend has just stopped belonging to the man who imagined it. The man who gave rock and roll its electric voice could not play a single chord. He couldn't tune a guitar by ear the way a real player does, and he saw the entire world through one good eye and one made of glass. His name is Leo Fender, and on paper he is the least likely father the electric guitar could ever have. He is born in 1909 to a family of orange farmers near Anaheim, California. As a boy, he loses the sight in his left eye to a tumor, and he wears a glass eye for the rest of his life. He studies to become an accountant. He keeps other people's books to pay the bills. But his hands are only truly happy inside a radio. In the 1930s, he opens a tiny repair shop fixing amplifiers, record players, and public address systems for farmers, dance bands, and anyone whose gear has died. When a musician's amplifier hums or a speaker rattles, it lands on Leo's bench, and Leo takes it apart down to the last screw. He has no band of his own. He has no stage. He has no obvious reason to be remembered. A man like this is not supposed to write the sound of a generation. He's supposed to fix the machines that make it louder. But that workbench is the exact school the electric guitar had been waiting for. Because Leo Fender could not play. Leo Fender could listen. And the distance between those two words is the whole story. Walk into any dance hall in 1940s California and listen for the guitar. You won't hear it. The singer has a microphone, the horns blow over everyone, and the guitar player stands in the back strumming a hollow wooden box that nobody past the third row can hear. The instrument is drowning, and every guitarist in America knows it. They just don't know who's going to fix it. The man who will is sitting in a repair shop in Fullerton, listening. They bring Leo their broken amplifiers, jazz players, cowboy swing bands, Western dance outfits working 6 nights a week. He fixes their gear, and while his hands work, his ears do something else. He hears the complaints behind the complaints. The hollow guitars squeal and feed back the second you turn them up. They can't cut through a loud room, and when they crack, they cost a fortune to repair. Leo cannot play a note of what these men play, but he can hear exactly what is missing, and the answer he reaches is not a musician's answer. It is an engineer's. Forget the hollow box. Build a guitar from a solid slab of wood. Make it loud, make it tough, make it simple enough that a working man can fix it himself. And build it the way he builds radios, not one at a time by some artisan, but down a line, the same every time, ready for the whole country. The idea is almost insulting in how plain it is. That's exactly why it works. They laughed at it. Real luthiers, the old world craftsmen who carved violins and archtops by hand, took one look at Leo's creation and called it a plank, a canoe paddle, a boat oar with strings. It was 1950, and the thing on his bench had no graceful curves, no hollow body, no soul that anyone could see. It was a flat board of solid wood with a neck bolted on, and it changed everything. He calls it the Esquire first, then the Broadcaster. By 1951, the world knows it as the Telecaster. The genius is in what's missing. The neck isn't glued in place like every guitar before it. It's held on with screws. Snap it on the road, and you don't ship it back for weeks. You unbolt the broken neck and bolt on a new one in minutes. There is no decoration. There is no waste. There is only function, the way a good tool has only function. And here is the part the old masters refused to understand. The Telecaster was not the first solid guitar anyone ever made, but it was the first one built to roll off a line by the thousand and sell in every town in the country. The craftsman built one perfect guitar for one rich customer. Leo built the same honest guitar for everyone. They called it a plank. The working musicians of America picked it up, and they never put it back down. For nearly 100 years, the man holding down the low end had to wrestle a wooden giant. The upright bass stood taller than the player, weighed more than a child, and barely fit through a doorway, let alone into the back of a touring car. Worse than that, it had no frets. You found the right note by feel, by years of practice, and on a loud stage, you mostly hoped. Then a man who couldn't play bass at all looked at the problem and solved it in one stroke. The year is 1951. Leo Fender takes the same idea behind his solid guitar and points it at the bass. He builds the precision bass, and the name is the whole promise. It has frets. For the first time, a bass player can hit the exact note every time with precision instead of guessing along the neck of that giant box. It's small, it plugs in, it's loud. The towering upright is suddenly optional. The rhythm section of modern music changes forever in that moment, and most people never even notice the man who changed it. Then comes 1954 and the masterpiece, the Stratocaster. Its flowing double curves, its 3 pickups, its tremolo arm that lets a player bend a note like a human voice. Leo shapes all of it alongside the musicians who actually use it. He asks what hurts. He fixes it. The Strat becomes the single most recognizable guitar shape on planet Earth. A silhouette people can draw from memory, long before they could ever name the quiet man who drew it first. Here is the strangest secret behind one of the greatest inventions in music. The inventor did not trust himself. He couldn't play, so he refused to design by his own taste, and that refusal is the whole reason it worked. This is the principle that built the early empire of Fender, and it is the exact opposite of how you'd expect a genius to behave. Leo Fender did not sit alone and dream up perfect guitars. Leo handed his prototypes to working musicians and sent them out on the road for months. Then he waited for the instruments to come back. He didn't want them returned shiny and praised. He wanted them returned broken and worn. Because the place where a neck cracked told him exactly where to make it stronger. The spot where the finish had rubbed away told him exactly where a real hand actually lived. The damage was the blueprint. An instrument had to satisfy the man earning his living on stage every single night before it earned the right to sit in a store window. It was never about what the engineer liked. It was about what the player needed. Leo Fender could not hear music the way a musician hears it, so he did the one thing most inventors are too proud to do. He listened to the people who could, and he let them design the thing he could never play. The man who built the loudest instrument in America was quietly convinced he was dying. For years, an infection he couldn't shake wore Leo Fender down from the inside, a stubborn strep illness that flared and lingered and refused to heal. It drained his strength, it clouded his future, and slowly it whispered the same thing every day. You don't have long left. So he made the decision a sick man makes. Health comes before the factory. The year is 1965. Leo Fender sells his company to CBS for $13 million, and for the first time in 15 years, he steps away from the workbench that was the only place he ever felt at home. Sit with what that means. The man who built guitars by listening to musicians has just handed the whole operation to a corporation that listens to a quarterly report. The hands that felt for the worn spot on a returned prototype are gone. The ear that heard the complaint behind the complaint is gone. What stays is the name on the headstock and the machines on the floor. The principal walks out the door with its inventor. The logo behind the strings stays exactly the same, but the ear sitting behind that logo now belongs to someone else entirely, someone who has never once asked whether a single musician would be happy. A corporation looked at a perfect machine and saw only one thing worth changing: the price of building it. CBS did exactly what a giant company always does when it inherits a living legend. It optimized. The neck that Leo had bolted on with 4 screws was trimmed down to 3, because 3 screws cost less than 4. The hardware got cheaper. The headstock was stretched out wider, easier to stamp out by the 1,000. And the quality control, the part nobody sees until it fails, began to slip. Once, every instrument had been shaped around the hand of a working musician. Now, each one was shaped around a cost and a production quota. And here is the thing about professionals. They hear it instantly. A serious player could pick up 2 Fenders, one from before the sale and one from after, and feel the difference in seconds. So the musicians of the world handed down a verdict that haunts the brand to this day. A pre-CBS Fender became the holy grail, the one everybody hunts for. A Fender from the CBS era became the one to be careful around. The body still said Fender, the headstock still said Fender, the famous sound was still printed on every advertisement and every price tag. But it was only on the paper now. The thing that made it Fender had quietly left the building, and everyone with a trained ear could tell. After 20 years of squeezing the life out of a legend, the corporation finally gave up, and the people who rescued Fender walked away with everything except the one thing that mattered most. The year is 1985. CBS is tired of the guitar business and puts Fender up for sale. But the buyer isn't some outside investor with deep pockets and no clue. The buyer is Bill Schultz, the very manager CBS had hired to save the brand from the inside, leading a small group of employees who refused to let it die. The price is around $12.5 million. And then comes the cruel catch buried in the fine print. The factory in Fullerton, the building where every legend in this story was born, does not come with the deal. CBS keeps it and shuts it down. So the people who loved Fender get the name, they get the blueprints, they get the legal right to build Fender guitars, and they get a pair of empty hands where the factory used to be. The legend now belongs to its own people again, but they have to rebuild it from absolutely nothing. No walls, no assembly line, no home. They saved the soul of the company. They just had to find it a brand new body. The dying man outlived the disaster by more than a quarter of a century. Here is the twist nobody saw coming. Leo Fender sold his company in 1965 because he was certain his illness would soon kill him. It didn't. He went on to live another 26 years, long enough to watch CBS nearly run his life's work into the ground, and long enough to watch his own people fight to save it. And he never stopped. The new Fender built a fresh factory in Corona, California, from bare ground, and slowly, patiently, won back the sound. Meanwhile, Leo went right back to his bench. He founded a company called Music Man, then another called G&L, and he kept on designing guitars the only way he ever knew how, by listening to musicians, almost to the very end, until his death in 1991. The corporation never killed his sound. The man who couldn't play a single note simply outlasted everyone who tried. And that is the quiet lesson hiding inside this whole story. The moment a company stops listening to the people it was built to serve and starts listening only to the spreadsheet, it begins selling off the very soul it can never buy back. The body keeps playing, the principle goes silent. So here's the question I can't stop thinking about. Would you rather own a pre-CBS original, flaws and all, made by people who actually listened, or a flawless modern copy built to spec? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story hits you, subscribe, because the next legend the suits got their hands on is one you won't believe.